Director with AARP Michigan, and I want to welcome you to the AARP HomeFit workshop. Over the next hour, we're going to share information with you about what you can do in your own home and to stay there safely as you age. Our discussion is going to begin with getting up to the front door, getting through the front door, and then exploring the entire house. As often as possible, we're going to give you adaptations that are low cost, moderate cost, and higher cost. Examples of strategies to make your home more accessible and products to make these changes and professionals to help you make those changes. Joining me today is Diane Bright. Diane is an occupational therapist. She got her degree from Wayne State University and has a Master's of Science with distinction in Access and Inclusive Design from the University of Salford in the United Kingdom. She advocates internationally on inclusive design with the public and private sectors. Her company, Alliance Therapy Access Answers, specializes in inclusive home and design and assessments for technology use in the home and community environments. Diane is a volunteer with AARP Michigan as an occupational or as a HomeFit presenter, and she's on the AARP Michigan Executive Council. So we're going to get started with our presentation. First, we want to talk about how does your home fit you? And wouldn't it be great if all homes were suitable for anyone, regardless of their age or their ability? And if you want to stay in a home, or anyone wants to stay in a home independently, regardless of age or physical ability, that they're able to do that. We have a couple of objectives today. We want you to start thinking about what you can do in your current home that allows you to stay there as safely as possible, as long as you choose. Next slide, Karina. Thank you. To begin thinking about what you can do in your current home that allows you to stay there as long as you choose. Next one, Karina. Thank you. And to think about this, and to determine what types of improvements you may need, and most importantly, what a specialist can assist you in making those changes. Now, some of the things we try to give you over the period of this hour, we try to give you, like I said before, lower cost, moderate cost, and higher cost options. Sometimes the lower cost are temporary, and sometimes and the higher costs are permanent, and sometimes they're just permanent and they're a little higher cost. But if the things that are keeping you from staying in your home are that your bedrooms are all on the second floor, or your only bathroom is on the second floor, then the cost of, say, a chairlift that we would suggest to get you up to that second floor is going to be really minimal compared to what the monthly cost of an assisted living or an independent living or even a nursing home setting would be. So when you start thinking about it broadly, we may be suggesting changes that cost some money, but overall, they're going to save you money. There are 4 things you need to be able to do in order to stay in your home safely. You need to be able to get in and out of your home safely. You need to be able to eat, to sleep, and to use the bathroom and to bathe. And so we're going to be talking about all the different parts of the home that include those. Next slide, please, Karina. Thank you. We're going to start with getting up to your front porch. In Michigan, most homes, unless you're in a condo setting or an apartment, are going to have steps up to the front door. So if my question to you is, do you have steps up to your front door? And your answer is yes, then you're with the majority of people who live in Michigan. Can you go back one screen, Karina? Thank you. So these are pictures of a neighborhood. They're actually in the same neighborhood. The one on the left is a no-step entrance that has a graded walkway up to the front door. So there are no steps to that front door. Just down the street is the picture on the right, which is a home where you can see that they have created a concrete ramp where the curb used to be. There's still a couple of steps if someone wants to just take those 2 steps, but then if someone has wheel mobility, meaning a wheelchair or a walker, they can easily use that concrete ramp up to the front door. Okay, next slide, Karina. Okay, so a no-step entrance can be anywhere. It can be the front door, it could be the garage, it can be a side door, it can be a back door. And we're going to show you some ways that you can get up to your front door if you don't have the option for a no-step entrance. Karina, next slide. The first way is a ramp, and this is what most people know as ways to get up to their front porch. Many people don't like ramps. Many people think that they are ugly or that they showcase that there's someone who is using wheel mobility in the home, and sometimes that's uncomfortable for people. No matter where your ramp is, the important numbers to remember for a ramp are that for every inch of height from the ground to the bottom of your front door, you need to have 12 inches of length for that ramp. So if you have 10 inches from the ground to the bottom of your front door, you need to have a 120-inch or a 10-foot ramp. Other things to consider on the ramp is you can see this ramp has handrails on both sides, and then it has sort of what I call a landing pad where you can turn your wheel mobility, your walker or wheelchair, to get to the front door, open that front door. There's space to do that, and then get into the house. Karina, next slide. So what we just showed you was a permanent ramp. You can also get temporary ramps. The one on the left is a temporary ramp at a back door or a side door, possibly. It has both steps on one side and the ramp on the other side. And then the door has that landing area where you can open the door and go in. On the right, this is a ramp that is very temporary. This is the ramp that you use if grandma comes over for holidays and you need to get her into the house.
Or Karen, if somebody has knee surgery, someplace where you have 6 weeks of recuperating and you can't get up that step because that's a high elevation, you might want to consider one of these.
Yeah. So, but this is one where a person definitely needs to be wheeled up into the house. This is not a ramp that is safe for someone to take on their own in a wheelchair. In a walker, it's a different story. But in a wheelchair, you definitely, we're talking throughout this program about safety, and safety is hugely important. Next slide. All right, here's another alternative. If you're using a walker, or if you maybe have some neuropathy and it's harder for you to navigate those steps, walker steps, which are longer and they have less height. I believe they're about 20 to 22 inches long and no more than 4 inches high, so that you can put that walker up, take the shorter step up, and get that way into the house. Next slide. All right, so we've talked about ramps. The very first picture I talked about with the no-step entrance had a landscaped no-step entrance. And this is a home that was done by a client of one of our occupational therapists who's a HomeFit presenter. And if you give the next slide, you can show, this is the before slide. The next slide will show that they created a no-step entrance with landscaping. Very attractive. They only had 8 inches of 8 to 10 inches of step up to their front door. They had plenty of room in the front of the house in order to do this really beautiful landscape entrance, no-step entrance. This is one that you definitely want to work with all of them. You want to work with professionals, but this is one where with the landscaping and the changing of the grades, you definitely need a professional. Don't try to tackle this on your own. You could end up with some water issues possibly if you don't do it right. Next slide. All right, another way to get up to your front porch in order to get into your house are outdoor mechanical lifts. And as you can see, the top right has snow on the ground, so they are an option for Michigan. You would definitely need to get the cold weather package that goes along with them. These are need to be purchased and installed. They can be purchased used. A lot of the things that we're going to talk about today, I encourage people to look for those used. The cost is much less, but you still need to have a professional install them. These have a hand crank so that if the power goes out and you need to get out of the house, there's still a way to get out of the house. This is not electric; it's a hand crank. But you can see they can be used at the front entrance, on the top right, on the left is a side entrance, and in the garage. So that's an option too. And regular ramps can be put in the garage too. If you don't want a ramp in the front of your house, you think it will detract from how your house looks, you can always use one of the spaces in the garage as a ramp area. Next slide. Now, are all entrance modifications always an option? Not always. Sometimes your slope is too steep and you don't have a decent access from the side or the back of the house. This is where you really want to bring in the professional occupational therapist who, what they do in their jobs is to troubleshoot ways to help you navigate the home and be able to stay there. And they are very creative people and can sometimes help you come up with other options. Diane, do you want to add anything to that?
Yep. One of the things is that, like, for instance, in this house, you're going to look at the front entrance as being where it is. That's right up against the cement steps. Some of the things we might come up with where we might be able to ramp or put a lift is if you can see that there's a window or a jutting of the house off to the side, or let's say to the opposite wall of where you see the front room windows, we may be able to put an entrance there that can be ramped or put a lift on. So sometimes it's thinking of something that you would not have any idea that you could do that. So that's the reason why you look at getting somebody who can look at it and say, well, no, there's not something we can do, or hey, here's where we'll put the entrance.
Excellent. All right. Next slide, please. All right, so we talk about safety, and safety is of the utmost important. You do not want to fall. And this is actually a picture, again, this is from one of our occupational therapy HomeFit volunteers who had a client who they didn't need a ramp, they didn't need the walker steps, they were still mobile, but they needed a little bit. They didn't feel there was that step down from their front door or the step up from the front door, whether you're going in or out. And so this is with the circled object is a grab bar. It's just a decorative grab bar that they installed as a way to something for them to grab onto, so they helped them up a little bit going into the house, gave them more stability, and they could grab it going down to help them with a little bit of help going down, taking that one step down. You can't see it in this picture, and I don't have it in the slide deck, but they also put their walkway had a couple of steps, and she had put in hand railings on both sides of the walkway. But as you can see, things don't need to really blends in well. You really can't see it. And what the homeowner said about a couple months later was that, it doesn't matter how old someone is. Every single person who comes to my house uses that. So maybe helpful for more than just you. So next slide. All right, so we have talked about getting you up to your front porch. Now we're going to talk to you about what's the next obstacle that might be keeping you from your home, and that might be the threshold. People don't think about threshold being something that can keep them from being able to get into their home. The one on the right is a beveled threshold. It's just very short, very, maybe a half inch, and it's rubberized. It's from an apartment or a condo door, and you can just walk right in or wheel right in. On the left, you have about 2 3/4 of an inch step up from the porch, the threshold, into the house. So that's enough to keep someone who is in a wheelchair, even if it's temporary, from being able to get into their home. Luckily, there is a very low cost and easy solution to this. Next slide, please. And they are threshold ramps. The one on the left is made out of an aluminum type metal, and it is securely screwed down into the porch or the door area. The one on the right is a very heavy rubberized material. I actually have one of these, so I can tell you it's not going anywhere. You put it down, it's not going anywhere. And the one thing I don't like about the slide on the right is that you want to make sure that the threshold ramp goes at least all the way to the doors. And see on the right, on the left. The left goes just to the edge, where the right one goes past the edge of the doorway. If it's possible to go past the edge of the doorway, it's just that much safer. Next one, please. All right, so we've got you up the steps, overcome the obstacle of the steps. We've overcome the obstacle of the threshold. Now, what about the door width? So many doors in older homes are narrower. The more recently built homes, they're wider, but there are sometimes still issues getting through that doorway. And even if a door says that it is, say, 32 or 34 or 36 inches wide, the door itself, as it opens, takes up some of the room. So a 32-inch door may actually only be about 30 inches wide. And that's where these things called swing clear hinges come into being, or into your life, if that's your issue. These will allow the door to swing completely away from and allow the entire opening of the door to allow you to get through. So if you could do the next slide. On the left, oh, no, back one. On the left, this is actually a picture into our office break room. You can see where the door is blocking some of the opening of the doorway. Karina, can you click on the video at the bottom of that one? Yeah. At the bottom of the one on the right with the swing clear hinges. If she can make this happen, this shows you that it opens and allows the entire width of the door to be available to get through. There you go.
Karen?
Yes.
One thing about using even a regular door, or especially the swing away hinges, is that if we go back to look at the office door, you could have a wall right behind that door, and an offset hinge isn't going to work as well. But what you need to look at, we would come in and say, how about we look at the other side and flip the door, and it might be able to swing because there's no, as you can tell in this room, because there's a table or something there, that would be a wall that door could swing completely to. And last is we may have the door swing in to the other room if we don't have that option. So sometimes there's a simple changing how the door, like you do on refrigerators, how the door swings might give you the option of using that swing away hinge.
Excellent point. And I know you probably didn't notice it, but on the door on the right, which one of my volunteers made to kind of demonstrate how this opening works with the swing clear hinges, we had a lever handle door handle. Those are fabulous. I'm hoping to put those on my home. They're easier just for me to get in, push your arm down on the lever handle to get in and get with all the groceries. So, all right, next slide, please. So now we have gotten you up to the porch, over the threshold, and through the door. And now we're going to talk about other parts of the home. So we'll start with stairways. And even if it's a stairway on the outside of your home, if you don't need to have a ramp or any of those things, we want you to consider having handrails on both sides of your stairways. And this is, if we were in person, I'd be asking the audience, do you know why? And sometimes people will know and sometimes they won't. But if you have some lesser mobility on one side of your body, and say your right side you have lesser mobility, maybe it's because you've had a fall and you have a sore arm, or you broke an arm, or something on the right side is not working as well. You have the left side of the stair rail going up to help you. Now, when you're coming back down, you need to have it on the other side so you can still use your left hand on that handrail in order to get down and give you the extra support. It's also important for the stairway to be well lit so you don't slip and fall. And if possible, to have a non-slip surface on your stairs. The other piece is, if there's any way if you stand at the top of your stairs and look down, it's gonna look like one solid color. And if there's a way to have some way to break up the colors so that you can see where each step is, that would be wonderful. Help with safety. Next slide, please. All right, these are just two examples of stairways with handrails on both sides. On the left, you can see that the stairs themselves have some black strips on the front of each step so that you can see where each step is, and it's a safety feature. And on the right, you just have the example of handrails on both sides.
Karen?
Yeah.
I always comment on the stairwell at the right. Karina, can you go back one slide? If you notice that the stairwell that we have illustrated here is obviously from an older home, if you look at the telephone stand, but in an antique, or an older historic home, let's say, you'll see these type of stair rails all the time. It's a design element to only have one handrail, and in modern times we chose to not narrow the staircase because it wasn't as wide as these are. They were made wide so that the large skirts could go up the stairs and down the stairs without the women falling. But if you notice that the handrail curves out on both sides, and it directs you off of the stairs. It goes all the way down. Next slide, Karina. In this one, the new handrail that they put down goes all the way down to the bottom of the first stair, and the handrail on the left does not. And that's a trip or fall hazard. You want it to continue. If you're redoing it, continue it all the way down to the landing so that you have something to hold on for that first step up and that last step off the steps.
Excellent. Okay, next slide, please. All right, so if you have some mobility issues and you can't find it really difficult to do the stairs, and all of your bedrooms or your bathroom, only bathrooms on the second floor, here's an option to overcome that obstacle. These are stair lifts, and they are the cheapest version is you have a straight stairway from bottom to top. You can get custom-made ones for a curving stairway or for one that turns. They do make them in the center. Again, this is our HomeFit OT volunteer from Boston who said that most of her clients live in these older homes with these very narrow staircases, and you can still get a stair lift for those narrow staircases. And you can see that when they're down, they are down far enough that they don't block getting, for anyone who wants to use the stairs can get back up or can use them. On the far right, not great for Michigan necessarily, but this is an outdoor stair lift. I think this might be a problem with our snow and ice, but this is all folded up. This is a stair lift that can be used in the outdoors. So I see there's a question, Diane. How important is lighting in the home when thinking about upgrades for aging in place? What do you recommend?
Well, we're going to be talking about that in a minute. But what I tend to recommend now, because it's so easy, is that you have motion detector lighting, especially for being able to use it in the evening if you have to get up and down from a room, something that turns on and lights the pathway for you, especially LED lights that take time. I'm sorry, the lights that take minutes for you to warm up and to light a room tend to not be what we need, because you're needing to do that task right then and there. So if, let's say if you have an arts and crafts room, you might put those types of lights there if you can wait to do your task. But if we're going into the kitchen to see what's going on, we want that light to be on right away. You can always put a dimmer switch on it, so if it comes on bright, you can bring that down. But I think the biggest safety thing is that you have motion detector lighting, and it's not what you think of when you think about outside the big unit now. Now it's a little knob on the light that just goes on as somebody passes and goes off, and you can choose to time it, or you can choose to have it stay on until there's no motion in the room.
Excellent. And I see there's a question that I can actually answer. What is the range of cost for the stair lift? So I did some research on this a while back. And again, I said earlier, a lot of these things can be purchased used. And I would highly recommend you look into that. A lot of the companies who actually sell stair lifts sell them used also. They buy them back and then they'll sell them used. I would say brand new, a straight run, about $4,000 to $6,000 installed. Used, at least half of that about.
Something that's important is you do have to have them installed by a certified elevator installer. It's code and law. So when you're out and about looking for that, make sure that you actually contact one of the vendors, and there's a few of them, or one of the contractors that works with those vendors, because it certainly is a big safety issue. You want to make sure that if you got to get down those stairs, you want to make sure that that chair is operating, was installed correctly.
Correct. Yes, and I want to remind people, I didn't say this at the beginning, but you can feel free to ask questions in the chat at any time, and we'll try to answer them live. So next slide, please, Karina. All right, so we're going to move on to the bathrooms. And the bathrooms are dangerous places. They tend to be, if you fall, everything in there is hard. So we want to avoid falling in the bathroom as much as possible. So making this bathroom accessible, if this bathroom looks like had enough room in front of the vanity to bring a wheelchair or a walker in, but you just couldn't get to the toilet or get into the shower, which was at that point a normal tub shower setup. So what happened here was they took out the tub shower and put in this one-piece prefabricated shower stall. And it does two things. One is it allows someone who's using wheeled mobility to take a shower, get into the shower. And the other is that it allows someone now with wheel mobility to be able to bring their wheelchair into the shower stall and then transfer to the toilet. So it makes the bathroom accessible for that person. These one-piece prefab things, this one came with the grab bars. You still have to make sure what's behind those grab bars is solid wood that they can put those the grab bars into so that they're secure. You can't just put those into the drywall. Here you would put up a shower wall rod and a shower curtain for water mitigation, and they are set up so that the water will drain towards the towards the drain, you will likely have a little bit of water cleanup afterwards.
Karen, one thing, backing on to your grab bar comment, no matter where you put grab bars, there needs to be backing put in the length of that grab bar. So, and it's a certain standard, a certain amount. So it's something that you don't want, your next door neighbor just getting your grab bar, put on your wall. You want to make sure that it's put in correctly. That's another reason why you would have somebody who does that or has done it before or knows how to put the backing in to do the installation. Just for a second, Karen, if you can pause, we did get a question about where you can purchase threshold ramping and what the cost is. Online is a really good place. So you can get it directly, look for the measurement, you can get the measurement. You can do an Amazon or anybody kind of a search, and you can get it directly sent right to your home. Also, if you look at contractors that are, and we'll get into this, are CAPS certified, they understand those kind of products and they may have them available for purchase. But most of the folks end up just going online and seeing what they saw here, measure your threshold and make sure it extends that amount, and you can do it that way.
Right, and I purchased one online, just went on to Amazon and looked them up and purchased it. So, and it was not terribly expensive.
And they do come in various widths and lengths, so you want to make sure you measure your threshold.
Yes. Yeah. Remember, we're still looking, Diane, at the 12-to-1.
If you ideally, yes, and most of them come if they're prefab, so they're going to have certain lengths. So let's say they come in 10, 12, and 14, and you have a threshold. Well, it would be this. Let's say 2, 4, and 6. And yours is 5, you're going to want to go with the 6 if you have enough distance from the door out. It'll be 6 inches or whatever.
They came per inch. I think it was not 2. So yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So
next
you're
slide.
going to want to make sure you do that.
All right. Next slide, please. All right. So this prefab also comes in a shower. Just an upright stall also. This one, as you can see, has a fold down bench if you need a bench in it. They come with all kinds of different things. The big box stores these days carry a lot of this. This is where I found these. So and the swing clear hinges you can get at the big box stores. A lot of the things that we're talking about you can get locally at your big box store. Next slide. All right, this is an example of a bathroom modification from the VA website. And I actually have this in here for 2 reasons. One, to say it doesn't have to be a prefab unit. You could have someone come in and this one's done in, took out the tub shower combo and just made a shower, roll-in shower, and with tile. And this is to remind me to mention that there are, if you happen to be a veteran and saw were during active wartime, there is money out there for modifications to your home. You just need to look on the VA website for those various programs that provide that. Next slide. All right, so question we usually ask is which one of these is a grab bar? Most of you will say that middle bottom one is a grab bar, and you would be absolutely right. But all of these are actually grab bars. The companies have gotten smart and created grab bars that look like the things you would normally grab onto if you were needing to grab onto something to help you get in and out of the tub. So there are soap dishes. There are the thing that goes around the water turn on and off. And but you want to make sure, a grab bar can be a towel bar, but a towel bar cannot be a grab bar because of safety. And for any of these, whether they're decorative or not, you still need to make sure, like Diane said, to have the backing for them, or they won't do their job. You can install it, but it won't do their job if you don't have the backing there.
And also to understand that if the back wall of your tub, shower, or bathing area is fiberglass, it's difficult to have a grab bar installed post. That's why you see these inserts have them made in them ahead of time. You really do need a professional to look. It doesn't mean it can't be done, but you need somebody to look at it and say your fiberglass can be done, because it'll split the fiberglass when you drill into it. Not a good thing. Before we go on, Karen, we do have another question. Is there a best type of flooring for bathrooms for aging in place? Non-slip. There's all kinds of products out there now. It doesn't have to be the small little tiles that are non-slip, but you want to make sure that it is certified to be non-slip flooring in your bath, shower. If you're replacing a shower, the flooring on even those prefab units should be made of a different material, and they're non-slip. And the other is your outside of your bathing area flooring. If you're replacing it, non-slip. Most of the flooring that was put in bathrooms that did tile, let's say anywhere from the 1950s forward, used the very small tiles, which are non-slip tiles. But there are now larger tiles that are non-slip surfaces. So you just want to make sure with your vendor that it is actually certified non-slip.
Thank you. All right, next slide. All right, so these are some bathroom safety devices that are low cost. These are a tub bench. And this was a savior when my daughter was in her mid-20s and broke her ankle, had to move home for a while. We used one like the one on the right. Yes, we used Diane's. And I will say, you know, you sit down on it, you swing your legs over into the tub, and you slide over. You would, in order to attempt to keep the water off the floor, I slip the shower curtain liner up the middle to slide it into the slot. There's like a slot there between the bench on the outside and the bench on the inside. And then you still have a little bit of water on the floor, was my experience. So be prepared for that if you need that. The one on the left is a swivel seat. So you can sit down and it swivels and then slides easily over. You don't have to scooch as much as on the one on the right. All right, next slide. All right, Diane, you want to talk about these?
Over my head. There are products out there that seem to be something that would be an easy fix, and they usually tend to be pretty low cost, but the problem is they're not safe. The one on the left, you see the leg going into the tub, that you can see the cranks on the bottom of it. That cranks onto your tub. Two things going on there. If you have a fiberglass tub, puncture it. Number two, every time you use it and you have your hand go across that bar, you have the possibility of loosening that grip on the bottom. And they're there to stop you from slipping and falling. So I want you to imagine holding on to that, and you start to lose your balance. You're going to grip even harder and pull in the direction you're going to fall to try to right yourself, and it's very liable to come with you. The one on the right are the suction ones that you see all over the place now. And, you know, you lift up on a thing and suction cups come onto the tile wall. Number one, as the water approaches, they can give. I don't know if anybody's ever had those sun catchers on their window and have one come crashing down because it got warm and the suction gave away. And they're known for doing that same thing. When you need it in the emergency because you're losing your balance, that's, you know, an external force that they don't test for, and the suction can give away. So we don't recommend using these because we are talking about keeping you safe and not having you get hurt.
Correct. All right, thank you. Next slide. All right, so as we get older, sometimes it's harder to get up and down from a seated position. So the comfort height toilet is about 3.5 inches higher than a normal toilet. So it does help you stand up and sit down with more ease. Diane always warns people, though, that, you know, if you're, as a woman, we tend to shrink as we get older. Well, I guess we all probably shrink as we get older, but and sometimes that comfort height toilet is too high, so that your feet don't hit the ground when you sit down. So you may need to keep in mind who is using that toilet before you put one in.
Excuse me, Karen, we had another question coming about ceramic tiles. I don't want to lose our thought train here. But ceramic tiles can be non-slip. The larger ceramic glass tiles are slippery, so you wouldn't want that. So again, have it made sure that it is a non-slip surface, but there are ceramic tiles that are non-slip.
Yep.
Thanks.
Thanks. Next slide. All right, so here are some, instead of a comfort height toilet, here's some inexpensive alternatives. Also can be temporary, so this could be if you had a knee replacement or a hip replacement. The one on the left, I know that I purchased one of these for my father, and they ranged online. The range of prices for what looked exactly the same thing were huge. There's probably a $60 swing. I bought one of the cheaper ones, and it worked absolutely fine. And that one again, and you can also use this if you need to as a shower chair. So the one on the right just clamps on to the toilet bowl and helps you with being able to have some leverage to help sit down and stand up again. Next slide. All right, Diane, you want to talk about this one?
Sure do. Biggest thing about being safe in the bathroom is to hopefully not slip and fall. And slip and falls in bathrooms are dangerous for a lot of reasons, because everything in the bathroom is hard or sharp edges. And if you're going to hit the toilet, the tub, the floor, the vanity, some damage is going to be done. It's not falling outside on the grass. So having a support to help you get up and down, or to support you as you stand at a toilet, is pretty important. There are lots of different devices that you can use. The one that we talked about on the left top is attached to the toilet. It's easy. It's gives you support on both sides, so you can push yourself up, get your balance, get ready to go, and then have something to hold on to with one hand or both if you need it. One of the things I would mention, though, too, if you had to use wheeled mobility or your bathroom is very small, you may only be able to get onto the toilet from the side. So you may want to look at a device that has the option of drop arms, which means that, for instance, if we were approaching this toilet on the top, we would be able to hit a lever and that arm would drop down, so we could just scoot over to the toilet and then lift it back up. You kind of see that with the ones that attach to the wall on the right-hand side at the top. They can swing away or come up or down so that you can approach the toilet and get onto it safely. The one at the bottom left allows you to use a pole as well as a horizontal swinging pole, so getting in and out of the tub, or when you stand up at the toilet and you've got to then take a step. So it's an extra support to allow you to come up to standing, get your balance, and then move forward. And I love the one on the right because it does two things. It's toilet paper secure post, as well as a toilet paper store. And when you're out of toilet paper, which we all need to know now. So it's a good device. It also has the vertical component to it. So if you look at it, when you look at it, it loops over, but you can hold on to the up and down part of the bar, and that's usually the amount of force that somebody needs.
Yeah. All right, now next slide. And this is just showing that super pole in a couple different scenarios, whether it's in the bathroom or the bedroom or the living room. That is an assistive device that can be used throughout the home. Right. Next slide. All right, so sinks. So accessible sinks, sometimes you don't necessarily have to have a wheelchair for an accessible sink to be handy. Sometimes it's harder for people to stand up a long time to brush their teeth, to wash their face, wash their hands. And so you could put a chair here, or you could, if you're using wheeled mobility, you could utilize this. The one on the right has doors so that you can close those up. It looks like a normal sink vanity, and then open those up if you have the need to roll a wheelchair or set a chair underneath there. Next slide, please. All right, the kitchen. Moving on to the kitchen. So, if you're, so again, when we're talking about standing for long periods of time, you can purchase, if you're redoing a kitchen, you can do it then, but you can also purchase these drawers that pull out. They just, you would purchase them. You can get them, probably order them from your big box store. I don't know if they have them there, but you can get them online. They're not very expensive. You basically take the drawer front off of your drawer, attach it to this, and then the drawer where you'd purchase the size that fits into your drawer size. So if it was 12 inches wide and 3 inches deep and 24 inches long or whatever, you would purchase that. And then at the very bottom is something called a perch chair. So that allows you to sit comfortably with good posture and cut your vegetables up or mix your cake or whatever it is you want to do in the kitchen there. So go ahead.
I would add that this is a really handy device for smaller kitchens where you cannot extend the counter space or put the table near you, and it allows you to, if you see you've got your hot kettle, I think it is, yes, or pot on the one part, it doesn't have to extend all the way out. What it's showing you is that it extends all the way out so you can put that perch stool, or a lot of people have a rolling walker that has the seat in it. You can lock it and sit there, or even, a regular chair. So it's a really easy, and in a lot of cases, if you know how to use a drill, it's a DIY kind of project, and not something that's very expensive to do.
Yes, and I want to remind people, if they have questions, go ahead and ask them in the chat, and we will try to answer those. We have a question that's going to be, you're going to like, Diane. How important are the bathroom mats to avoid slipping in the bathroom?
Oh, I love them if they work. One of the things that we talked about was non-slip surfaces. And if your bathtub or bathroom has a non-slip surface on it, very few mats will stick because it's not a surface that it can adhere to. Same thing with the benches. So you need to go after we're done here and check your bottom of your tub. A lot of the fiberglass ones, showers and tubs have that the kind of surface to it, and they won't stick. So they'll slip and slide. So you want to make sure what you get will stick. But I do think they're really important to have. There are some that have the backings on to have outside the tub as well. So it's not just a towel or something that can slide away from you, that it's got the rubber mesh on the back of it so that it will stay in place.
Okay. All right, next slide, please. So there is a question about local companies specializing in making these kind of home improvements. We're going to talk about that a little bit more at the end when we talk about folks who can help you with these kind of things. So again, we're in the kitchen, and this can be true for the bathroom or any room that has cabinets, D-shaped pulls and handles rather than knobs. Sometimes the small muscles and being able to grab onto a small knob and pull is much harder than being able to slip your hand into a D-shaped pull or handle and open something. So we highly recommend those for all of your cabinets. Next slide. All right, so sometime in I think it was probably late 70s or early 80s, we went from the microwave on the countertop on the right to the space saver microwave that goes over the stovetop, which saves space on your countertop, but can be dangerous, both for younger people who are maybe not quite tall enough, maybe don't have the strength, and for older people, because a lot of times as we get older, we develop some shoulder issues or some weakness in your upper body strength, And bringing something hot down from up above there over your stove can be really dangerous, spilling on yourself, um, or dropping it. So we highly recommend if you're that you look at, if that describes you having a little less strength in your upper body or some shoulder mobility issues, looking at putting a microwave back on the countertop. You can open the door, you slide it out, you can slide it down the counter. It's much safer than um, the stove top.
The other thing I would look at is, even if you don't have mobility issues with reaching above, I always tell people to look at what happens when you open that door and you're pulling something out. Is it at your eye level? And it's hot. And, you get distracted, whatever, and that opens up at you. It's your face that's going to get splashed. So in terms of just general safety, if you have one and it happens to, go on the fritz, or see a countertop one that's a great Black Friday sale, we still go with them because it's just a safer thing in general.
Yes. Next slide, please. All right, so kitchen safety devices. So if you have someone who is forgetful, lives alone, and might you have some concern about them, or you're concerned about yourself leaving the stove on or the oven on, and they're becoming dangerous, like pots boiling dry and the safety issues there. There are devices out there. These are two of them: the cooktop automatic oven and the iGuard stove. They basically connect with your with your stove or your oven, and they turn it off. Every one of them. There's a whole bunch of them out there. They all work a little differently. Some will turn off after there's been no movement in the kitchen for like 10 minutes. You can override that if you have a roast in the oven, so that you don't have to keep running back in there and making sure there's some movement in the kitchen. Some will turn off the burners after a period of time of no activity in the kitchen. So those are something interesting to look into if you have that concern. Like I said, all of them are different, so you really need to do your homework on that. We aren't necessarily recommending either one of these two. It's just we wanted to give you an example of them. On the right is the pot watcher. It's just a glass round disc that makes noise when your pot is boiling, so that helps you remember that it's there. It's just another safety device. So
one of the things I would recommend, though, too, at looking at these, a lot of people are taking care of their grandchildren in their home, and with some of these devices, and there's, like I said, there's other ones, especially with smart kitchen devices. You can shut the stove off. No one can turn it on operating. With knobs now being at the front, which is better than reaching across the stove to turn on your pots and pan, the flame or the burner for your pots and pans. They're right at eye height for a little toddler, so it allows you to lock all that down, which is also good. But I also mentioned that if you're replacing, because we all keep our appliances, and then all of a sudden, on the day you don't want it to, it doesn't work. There are appliances out there that are smart now, so they can connect right to your phone. And so look at smart safety devices for the kitchen, because there's a lot of them out there now. These are good for retrofitting if your stove is in great shape.
Yeah. All right, next slide, please. All right, so ovens. There are lots of different ovens out there. The one on the upper left is an oven that has a side opening and then a pull-out drawer in front of it, a board in front of it, so you can just slide what you're making over there and then slide it to the counter. You might, if it's just you or just two of you in the household, you might consider a countertop oven. You're not having to bend down into it to pull things out. A lot of times these countertop ovens will hold a 9 by 13 inch pan. Some of them are even convection. And then the one on the right, actually, I own this oven. I love this oven. The top is a smaller oven, and I use that probably 90% of the time. It's just my husband and myself at home, and we I use that the majority of the time. But on all the holidays, which I host, I need it all. And so it's just a fabulous oven. The top oven is, right about hip. When you open it up, is right a little below your hip level, and it's easy to pull things out, set them on the counter. So there's a lot of different ones out there, but safety again, bending down, lifting hot things out and up. If you have some strength issues, you might consider an alternative. Next slide. All right, we want to really encourage you to find creative solutions. This was a solution. One of our HomeFit occupational therapists had a person, it was actually a friend of hers who had a knee replacement. And after the first day home, she lived by herself. She had attempted to take her cereal and her coffee on the walker that she was using over from her kitchen to her her table. And by the time she got to the table, there was nothing left in the bowl. And so she called and said, I need help. And so this was the solution. You bring in a card table and a chair so you can pour your cereal, pour your coffee, slide it down the counter, set it on the table, sit down, and nothing has spilled. And then, if you have company or whatever, the table and chair can just be put away. So there are lots of creative temporary solutions, even permanent solutions if you want. Use them permanently, but we encourage you to find creative solutions, especially for the temporary situations. Next slide. All right, is your laundry in the basement? So one of the options there is the stair lift. If you don't have the option of bringing your laundry up from the basement, the other option is to find a location on your first floor where you can use one of these, put in one of these maybe smaller units. On the left are some smaller front loading units, some like apartment size or condo size front loading units. The middle one is actually a picture of the one my brother has in his condo. And this one actually is very easy to lean down. You don't have to lean deep to get things out, and it's not a big lift to put the things in the dryer up above. So they do hold smaller amounts though. And then the one on the right is just a regular size front load washer or dryer. Or actually, I think that one might be. Yeah. So in Europe, they have these washer and dryer combinations. And they take longer, obviously, because they're doing both jobs. But the people who have them seem to love them. And surprisingly, usually at almost every in-person HomeFit presentation we have, there's almost always at least one person who has one. So next slide. Okay. Electrical outlets and switches. You want to talk about this one, Diane?
Sure. If you're redoing your electrical outlets, we say if you put them at a maximum height of 48 inches, because if you have somebody who is then using wheeled mobility, they can reach them easier, and it's just a good redo. But what's easier, because they're larger to hit and easier to not have to do a pinch like you have to do, or a fingertip on our regular switches, are the rocker panels. Also now they come with dimmers that just are a slide on the side of the switch. So you can set it at the light that you like in that room, or dim and light, expand that light as you need it. One of the things I always mention about switches and outlets is I'll be asking you as a crowd, how many people know why outlets are placed where they are for plugs in a room? Because you always have to bend over or crawl under something to plug your device into. And the only reason they're at that height is when electricity came into homes, the finishing carpenter went around, put his hammer down on the floor and tapped, and that's where the hole was made. There's no other science to it. So raising them up so they're at chair height and you can just sit there and plug something in or unplug it is way better than having to bend over or crawl under something. So if you're doing a room and you're redoing something or building new, you want to look at raising those up.
Yes. All right, next slide. This is just a reminder that lighting in the home is really important everywhere. Every room in your house and the stairways and entrances. Next slide. And Diane talked a little bit about this earlier with the night lights, how night lights are an important thing for, especially usually, many of us get up at least once a night to use the restroom. And for there to be some sort of motion light or some sort of night light on that can help you navigate your way so that there's no trips and falls. Again, it's about safety. We do not want you to fall, so this can help. And I have, had in-person events where people say, make sure I take a nightlight with me, at least one, when I travel, because those hotel rooms, I don't know those hotel rooms. They don't have nightlights in the bathrooms, and I don't want to trip and fall. So that's a great suggestion. Next slide. All right, so what do windows have to do with this? So windows are important for a couple of reasons. One is to be able to open them and get, fresh air, cool air in if it's hot out, or get out if you've got something smoking in the oven that you need to clear out the fumes. But the other is for emergencies. So make sure, a lot of older homes, the windows are very difficult to open. So make sure that you can open your windows, and that you can, if you had to, that you could get out of them. But really, it's a safety thing more than anything else. All right, and then next slide. Make sure you always keep some form of communication with you. There are, all kinds of different ways you can do this. You can put a cell phone in your pocket. You can carry around one of the handheld cell phone, or not cell phones, but landline phones that are wireless. You can use one of the devices that you put on your wrist or around your neck. We have actually one of our volunteers who one day took the trash out, lives more of has a longer driveway, but not a super long driveway, took the trash out in the wintertime, slipped and fell in the driveway coming back in, and laid there for 3 or 4 hours before someone found him. And so you never know where you might fall and how long it might take for someone to find you. So always keep some form of communication with you as a safety feature.
Also, now they've come up with a lot of devices that you own and operate and can contact the person, your ICE person, your emergency contact person, that are regular watches now. It doesn't have to be an iWatch. It can be something. So check with your cell phone provider too, because there are just regular watches that have a lot of apps on them that will help you to stay in touch with somebody in an emergency situation.
Okay, next slide. All right, Smart 911. So this is something that a lot of people don't know about. This is a great thing to do. You go to smart911.com and you create yourself a profile so that if you have someone who say uses a wheelchair or uses oxygen, or there's a child in the home, or there's someone who moves more slowly in the home, you can put in where their bedrooms are or where the oxygen is kept. Or someone has medications that they're seizure medications, or if they're diabetic or things like that. You can put in as much as you want or as little as you want. Nobody will see those unless you make a 911 call, and then the 911 operator will see those and be able to share that with the first responders. And you can go to 911.com and get more information, but it is a really great a safety option that can help in the case of an emergency.
And you have to make sure your county has that too.
They all do now.
Okay, now they
Yep.
do. Okay.
Yep, it's all across the state of Michigan. All right, next slide. All right, so now we are at the consultants who can help. You want to talk about these, Diane?
Sure. Okay, the certified aging in place specialist I mentioned briefly back in the beginning of the presentation. You'll see the initial CAPS, Certified Aging in Place Specialist. It means that they went through a training program with the National Home Builders Association for aging in place, the things that we talked about. They're still contractors. They're still somebody you have to trust and be comfortable with doing the work. There's a lot of them out there, so feel free to check on them. But that's a good place to start when you whittle down who you would have do your work. The next is an occupational therapist who you really want to be involved in any plan if you're going to be doing a rebuild of something. You have a question about is there an option A or B? You can contact even what would be your local hospital or the Michigan Occupational Therapy Association if you're looking for somebody who specializes in that type of work. We have background in health and safety and redesign, so we're kind of like top bananas. Remodeler is somebody who can come in and do the small projects for you, the grab bars, doing a bathroom, those kind of things. Does not have to have a architect plan to do a remodel. An architect is someone you bring in if you are rebuilding something, which would be actually changing the lower area of your home, adding an addition, those kind of things. Also, I'll back up, remodelers or the CAP specialists tend to be the remodelers, and they are people who you would contact for ramping as well. Landscape architect is excellent when you look at what we did with that home where the front entrance changed. And a lot of your contractors, architects will have somebody that can do that work for you as well. And the builder, of course, if you are going to start out new, the builder will actually have some of those specialists as part of their team. And you come to them and tell them what you're looking for, see if they can fit it into their plan. That's why we have this. You can come engage and be able to tell the builder what you're looking for and have him do that for you.
All right, next slide. If we can kind of skip through that slide and go to the next one. All right, so do we have any questions? We're almost through. Are there any questions in the comments or the chat? If there are not, we will go through. Financial burden of home upgrades for aging in place. I'm not sure what that means. Is it a financial upgrade or a burden to upgrade it? What organizations can help with costs? So there are various places that can potentially help. Before I said if you're a veteran and you were active duty during wartime, the VA has money. There are lots of other possible organizations who can help. So, for example, if you happen to be in the greater Lansing area, there is a program called Tuesday Toolmen that do all kinds of things. They one of their main things that they do is put in ramps, but they also widen doorways. They also put in these prefab shower roll-in shower stalls and help you things to help you stay at home. We also have I would tell people to contact the Area Agency on Aging for other options, and then potentially, for example, if you have other things that not related to necessarily aging in place, but you need your roof redone and you can't afford it, you can try calling 211. They might be able to help you with that kind of thing. Question is, what's an often overlooked home modification, simple or not, that you feel can make the world of difference for aging safely in place at home? Diane, do you have a overlooked modification?
I think the ones that we did mention, biggest thing is probably the step into the house. you know, I'll do it. I'll come all the time to a house, and maybe they have a ramp out front even, and they miss that 2-inch step, and that'll trip you, and it's slip and fall again. I think that's one of the simplest ones. Motion detector lighting, railings on stairs, simple things that doesn't require somebody that's going to rebuild something. It's just things that aren't there, extending the railing down all the way. Some of the things that we just brought up.
And 2 inch steps is a threshold.
Yeah. One more thing. I would mention that it's AARP is advocating that the legislature in Michigan consider tax credit for modifications up to certain amounts too. So that's active right now. So keep posted on that one, because we want to be an age-friendly state, and that's going to be something that helps us to do that.
Yep. Yeah. All right. Question: how easy is it to install an electric stair lift in a home? Is it very expensive? So definitely don't do it by yourself. You need to hire. You need to hire someone to do that. And I think when I was costing it out, it's been a couple of years, but it was a couple $1,000s. So if your stair lift costs like $4, you might want to think about $2 more for the installation. So if there's no more questions, the next slide, so the slide that's up right now is just one of an example of some of the options that are available on our website, aarp.org/homefit. You can download the HomeFit guide or the low cost, no cost ideas booklet. And there are a variety of checklists. The slide that's up right now shows the room by room checklist. But there are a number of very good checklists that are up there. And then one more slide to our last slide. And these are scrolling across the bottom of your screen, the aarp.org/homefit/livable or /age friendly have a huge amount of information that can help you stay in your home as you age.
There's one more question that just popped up and said, I have a relative who doesn't know where to start with upgrades, who can come to my house and help. Any of the specialists that we listed would be a good place to start, but you could have them come to the house. I would start at these sites where you can actually go to the site and see rebuilds that have been done, this type of program that makes you knowledgeable. So if your relative isn't on this, help me out here, Karen, then I would go to the sites and you can watch videos, and it will actually go through that checklist, which is a good thing to do with somebody because it makes them be in their house going through what are my problems. When you come to a live presentation, you go home with that checklist. So you can go to the site and actually walk through that, whether it's at your house or at your relative's house, and it really gives you an idea of what you need to talk to with one of those specialists that we listed.
Yes. And this recording, this presentation's been recorded, and it will be available on Facebook, on our AARP Michigan Facebook page very shortly after this is done. And then we also have a survey that we ask you to fill out for us. It's just 5 questions. Should only take you a couple of minutes. And that link is also on the AARP Michigan HomeFit or Facebook page, along with this presentation area. It's in the comments section. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Diane. And we will talk with everyone. Hopefully see you in person at an event soon.
Hopefully.